Okay, hello everyone. We are here at this episode today of Between Two Teachers, and we are two teachers, former teachers, very passionate about education and our students and their safety and their education. And so we're going to give you our opinion about things that are happening currently in the area of education. So today is Friday, June 10th, and my name is Consuelo Lara.
My name is Madeline Cronenberg, and we begin, as we do every week, with our land acknowledgement. We pause to acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral land of Wichin, which is part of the unceded land of the Chochenyo and Kartken speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. We offer our respect to their elders and all Ohlone people, past and present. And for everyone interested even more in learning about the Ohlone people and their hopes and efforts to become recognized federally, please watch the Concilio meeting, which is coming up this coming Friday morning, and will be posted on our YouTube channel and be posted on the Concilio YouTube playlist and on our Facebook pages and anywhere any of you want to repost it or share it out. Please do that. That's really an important action that we can take to show that we really do acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we are on Ohlone land. And we also would like you to like and share and subscribe to the channel, which is something we hardly ever ask, but we need to. So please do join us every week as we talk about important things in education. So this week, I will start with talking about the guns issue, the safety issue that our children across America are struggling with. And the crisis and the tragedy in Uvalde, of course, is just one of daily things that happens in families across America and in schools and school sites across America. That's why guns have become the #1 cause of death of children. It's not car accidents, it's guns. There's a gun violence archive that does a daily count, the ever-changing daily count of how many children died yesterday or today, not just children, but how many individuals died every day in the United States. And it's a stunning number, just an unending number. It is a giant crisis. And so it's being approached differently. The solutions, we know in Congress, there are solutions that are being brought forward, and as a country, we are not in agreement. For our purposes here on this channel, I just did want to share out a choice, a proactive choice that's been made by the legislature and soon the governor in Ohio. And Governor DeWine is expected to sign a bill that the GOP lawmakers have passed in the Ohio legislature to allow their teachers to be armed in their classrooms. That's a stunning idea, isn't it?
It is. I just can't believe it. It's just amazing that they would even consider it as something to do to protect children. That's not what you do.
When it makes sense as you look at the drills that you've had. Once you started to have active shooter drills in school, right? Once you started that sort of, I guess, you were on the path to this. So now, if you're in an active shooter drill in Toledo, the classroom with the teacher who has a gun will have a teacher who will assume a position of shooting at the door.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And when you consider a lot of those guns that kids get access to are ones laying around the house, some of them loaded, not secure. Who knows, those teachers, the guns may be accessible to the kids in the classroom. Who knows?
How, well, there's all of these questions. It needs to be accessible if you're going to use it to protect the students, right?
Yeah. And
so, I mean, it brings up so many issues. But the point here is that these steps are being taken, right? To do nothing is to do nothing. To do nothing is to acquiesce and say, I have nothing to add. I'm not going to take any kind of step. Everything is fine. I'm just going to send my thoughts and prayers, right? That's when you're doing nothing.
Right.
Ohio is certainly doing something. I think that this is a very dangerous decision they're making, but they've made it, right? Then there's also the opposite decision to make other choices around safety. And that's what you've got something to share about the resolution around safety, right?
Yes, absolutely. That we've got a resolution pending, and I just I want to share. Well, one of my shout outs is going to be to the California Latino School Board Association. So it's like the caucus of the school boards, and they have put together a great resolution, and it's for school safety, and the biggest thing about it is the forming of a committee, active committee to address the school violence, and that is to establish a district-wide safety committee or task force, and to conduct a whole holistic review of needs assessment of safety gaps, like locks on doors or shades that you can cover your window, and that's this body be composed of certificated staff, certificated staff, classified staff, and district level management, 2 members of the governing board, parents, students, representatives, and they may include a representative of local law enforcement, because that's, they're involved in this as well.
Absolutely.
And to identify areas of safety, to prioritize and investigate, to develop a timeline of their activities, and to determine short-term and long-term recommendations for the governing board, for the site leadership, and our district leadership, to help improve safety throughout our entire district. And then further, that they direct that the administrators have a task force to establish a regular emergency campus safety training that's led by an outside third party to be identified by the committee, and that they will train all staff in response, but including but not limited to active shooter situation and other violent or threatening altercations. So that's the meatiest part of the resolution, and it has a lot of other things. It's so funny because it also says in there, we will not support arming teachers. That's absolutely out. And what I also like, we've included to continue the research. I think previous president stopped there being any research done on gun violence in the schools. And so we would remove that so that we can continue to, collect information about this. And so I'm really happy with what the Latino School Board Association has done. And I just think this is what every district needs to do. Every district needs to have this input. So I see this, if this is in place, and teachers or parents, because they really are the ones that are afraid to send their kid to school. If you got this in place, this is something a parent you can say, and you can be part of it. You want to come because we need to know how this is affecting you and what your thoughts are about these things that we're going to putting in place. Because I can see like safety walks through schools. I mean, this is proactive stuff, how to protect our kids. And I'm just blown away that, I remember at Helms, we did something called community mapping, And the kids had these maps and could put, where do you feel safe? We wanted to identify unsafe. This was old Helms, which was an ugly building. Where are you most unsafe? So we can know where to monitor the most. But the place they were felt the most safe was in our classrooms. And I remember that feeling of like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And just, you know, being proud of that fact that they do. And now it's the total opposite. And so to me, to have to say, and if there's an active shooter, it just blows my mind as a retired teacher that this is where we are. So yes, I totally support everybody passing a resolution. I did post it on my Facebook page. It's a good thing for us, for all the districts, counties, even you know, city councils, the board of supervisors, some aspect of this kind of resolution that shows you are being proactive in this area. So,
right. And it's the kind of thing that anyone who's watching us now, if you are an elected, and I know many electeds do watch us, consider what you've done. Consider the action that you're taking. Please take a look at what you're doing. You can do something. You can. Everyone can. And these are the kinds of things. What you need to do is you have to be willing to address it, put the resources in to be able to have conversations with people, with your community members, with those who are affected by this, so that those conversations will lead to action. And that's the world we live in right now. If you don't do it, then you're making the decision, you're saying that it's fine without any of this kind of action. And it's not. It's not. We've learned that. It's not. Because we've got two things. We don't have the mental health supports in place to keep everybody from ever having a mental health crisis. Like, we just don't have that. So we know that. We want it. We certainly doesn't mean that you're not going to invest in mental health. Mental health, additional mental health resources by themselves are not going to change this if we still have access to weapons that we have. And we do.
And we do. We do.
Right. And so if you want to have a conversation around whether or not to arm everybody and have concealed carry and have every person in America carrying their own AR-15, then have the conversation, but at least have it. Right. Ohio at least has had it, and I'm sure they're going to continue to have it as this plays out in the decisions that they've made. And they go from, school to school, classroom to classroom, district to district. And I'm sure that there are other states besides Ohio, probably Texas, that will do the same thing. But I don't know that for sure. The only one I know right now that has made the decision to allow armed teachers is Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So be sure that if you're not an elected, share out with your electeds. Share out as a community what you want to do to make sure that your children and your community members are safe. We just really have to address it, and we keep putting it off and blaming Congress. You don't have to. We certainly can blame Congress, but the buck doesn't stop there. There are a lot of things we can do before you get to Congress.
Exactly.
Okay. So there's that. And we will continue to follow that here. I'm going to just post something on Between Two Teachers and see who has passed these resolutions. We should just keep a list of who has passed a resolution and who has not.
You know, it just occurs to me, we can do little mini polls, can't we, on Facebook? I've seen that option on there. We should start taking polls about different things and
yeah. Right, about resolutions like this, and also just keeping track how many. So this resolution exists, right? So you can have a safety resolution in response to the recent tragedies, and you can either choose every single solitary city council and school board has the opportunity to post a resolution, and this is not just a resolution. This resolution says to take action, to form a task force, to do things, right? That's what you want. This isn't like just honoring a certain group for the month. This is about doing something.
Yeah, so, and this one takes action. It's not like the one out of a certain county where all it's saying is we urge Congress. to do something about, no. So if you just say, oh, we already passed it. Yeah, well, what does it say? What does
Right.
it say? Yeah, so make sure.
So you can have a passive resolution that just, sends thoughts and prayers and urges other people to take action. Or you can have a resolution that takes action, that takes responsibility. And actually, I mean, this is what everybody's, the big issue is when you take action, that means you have to apply resources. Yeah. You got to spend money, because when you have a meeting, the people you pay every day go to that meeting, that costs you money. And that means you honestly do prioritize it.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point, right? So taking action means setting up a committee, giving the public information and letting your public, your community have an opportunity to feel that their leadership wants them to be safe.
Yeah. And we'll bring more information about what other districts and counties, what are they doing that's supportive and really positive, best practices in this
We
area.
will do that. And we will look for places where they keep lists, just as there now are places where there are lists around who's done the gag orders against education, the critical race theory, and curriculum lists. There are people keeping national tabs on how many states are passing laws. We need to do the same thing around this kind of around gun safety, right? And I'm sure this also exists, and I will find it and we will post it as well.
Excellent. All right.
So there's that. The other couple of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about facilities. So this is a week that we've had graduations and people have gone to their new schools and enjoyed celebrating with students. And it's also a week where there've been elections and there have been bond measures that have been passed to build new schools, to improve schools. And one of the things about bond measures right now is that because of the global economy, right, the global inflation and the issues because of the war in Ukraine around getting resources, the issues because of COVID and resources being delayed in shipments, prices for everything are going up. And an example is the bond measure that was passed in West Contra Costa a few years ago, which was over $500 million, was passed with the idea that it was passed right before COVID, a week before. It was passed with the idea that it would cover the renovation and rebuilding of up to 19 schools. The first one has been priced out, and that's Kennedy High School. And there's I posted the YouTube, I'll put a link to their YouTube of this meeting in as well. That one has been priced out. And of course, the prices have gone up because of all of the issues that I just mentioned. And now the cost for that one school is priced out at $435 million.
That's amazing. It's just, oh my gosh.
Now, money has been spent to figure that out. They have different levels of things they can do, but what they really have to do is make sure that the whole community understands what the impact has been of prices going up, of inflation and prices going up.
Yeah.
And right now, that hasn't happened. There's only been one meeting that I'm aware of. I know that there's one local Radio Free Richmond, right? And there's one local member of the community who's worked very hard, who attended this meeting and is a Kennedy High School graduate himself, a proud Kennedy graduate, and who is stunned, right? And he's not so stunned that it costs more, because we've seen things cost more before as you build over the years. One of the things that I learned in my 12 years on the board is that as you try to build something, prices don't go down that often. Sometimes they do. We had one time when they actually did. And that was when there was a financial crash and everybody needed a job and nobody else was building. So when there was a financial crash, prices went down and we got more bang for our buck. But most of the time they go up. And now they've gone up really fast because of all these other things and the inflation and the supply problems. But you have to communicate this with your community, because people are going to be heartbroken. They were all celebrating that they had accomplished building something that they're not going to have the dollars to build right now. Right? You can pass something else and add more money to the pot. But right now, that's what has to happen in order for that pot to grow.
Oh, boy. But you're right. The issue at this point is communication. They're not communicating to the people they need to communicate with. And then once you do that, you're going to have to bring people together. And that's not easy for some people to do. They don't want to come together with.
Why it's important to communicate all along.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, and I'll just put this out there. One of the reasons that no matter what organization you're in, if you have a regular set of meetings, you're able to build some trust. The way you build trust is you build relationships. The way you build relationships is that you have contact with each other. And they can be Zoom meetings. People can see what you're doing in a Zoom meeting as well as they would if you were in an established setting. But you need to put the communication out there. And when you cut that off and say, no, we're not going to do that, it's too much staff time, you miss the point of what your staff is for. Because your staff is here to serve the community. And when you cut the community out, you can't just assume that they're going to be there to have your back when all of a sudden you turn around and say, oh, by the way, prices are, gone up by 50%.
Yeah. So it's the difference between, governing top down and governing with inclusion. And so you have more eyes on the problem, on the situation. So that means, some more solutions. Or
exactly.
People seeing, this could happen if you do that. So, let's look at that. It just is much more effective and successful that way. Because you're just doing top down, that leaves it open for so many mistakes. And I think, oh boy, there's going to be a lot to fix here.
It's going to be, it's not isolated to one bond program. It's going to be everybody. It's just how you have communicated all along that's going to make the difference, right? I think.
Yeah. And the end goal, but it's just like at the top of the mountain, is to find more money. You're going to have to find more money. So what does that mean? What does it look like? I mean, there's just so much to go through before you get to that point.
Right. And you don't even know that you need to when you think, oh, well, I have this huge pot of money and that'll cover everything.
Yeah.
Right. Until you know that it won't cover everything.
Yeah. So people are not even there yet. Just saying, okay, let's get more money. They're not even in that mindset yet.
Ugh. No. So the takeaway here is, but we'll keep talking about it, but the takeaway is to communicate.
Communicate, inclusion, build trust.
And build a team, right? Build a team.
Building partnerships, all the things we've been talking about, those are the things that work.
Those are the things that work.
All righty.
The other thing I just want to do is a couple of updates, because as I said, there was an election this week. Well, first update is once again about Ohio. It turned out that the superintendent that did get selected, I mentioned this here before, and I just want to do the follow-up. This has nothing to do with the gun situation in Ohio, but it is Ohio. And in Ohio, they had their superintendent of public instruction from last year offered a resignation at the beginning of the year. They did a superintendent search, and in their process, this is the state board members, a board member of the State Board of Education, got appointed to lead the task force to search for the new superintendent. And he decided after a short period of time not to just lead the task force, but to apply for the position. And then he got the position. And he got sworn in. He was superintendent for 11 days. And then it was pointed out to him that it was not legal for him to have served on the state board and then apply and get a position. He needed to have a year in between. There was a law that doesn't allow you to serve on a board that will set a salary for a position, you to apply for that position unless you've been separated for a year. And so after 11 days, he became aware of this law that obviously had been sitting there the entire time, and resigned. And he called it the revolving door law, but really it was an ethical thing that is there. And so he is now gone. And once again, Ohio does not have it has an interim superintendent of schools, and they have to start all over.
Yeah.
That's them. The second one I wanted to talk about is an update. This one is in San Francisco, where there was there was something on the ballot for there were a number of things were on the ballot, but the one for education had to do with changing the recall laws, the rules around recall, because they just recalled 3 of their board members. Remember the school board members? So there had been an effort by City Hall to make that recall process much more difficult, because they thought it was much too easy to do it. And they wanted to make it more challenging to remove somebody who'd been elected, duly elected. And that effort to change the recall vote failed. Right, so the same people who had done the recall supported keeping the recall rules the same. They renamed themselves. They used to be Yes on Recall, then they call themselves San Francisco Guardians. And it's a parent group. There's also all sorts of other money involved in this. And they won again. So this is the changes were defeated. And then we get to the one other big California education issue that came up during the election, and that is Mr. Thurmond, Tony Thurmond. Tony Thurmond got the majority of the votes. He got 45.7%, something like that. They're still counting, but he's not going to get over 50%, which means there will be a runoff, which means, and the individuals now, we'll know next week who it's going to be. But right now, of the, I think there are 7 people, and it's probably going to be, their numbers are very close. So they're really not sure who is going to be the one that has the highest number next to Mr. Thurmond. But whoever that is, basically, these are all people who are pro-privatizing.
Yes, yes. Boy, the charter schools association and all of those charter school supporters really want that position. They're going to do anything they possibly can to try.
They do. So if this race is not over, people were thinking it was, and it has only just begun.
Yeah,
right? It's only just begun. So we're not sure which one of those players it will be, but next week probably we will know, and so we'll start to talk about that next week. But just know that is not done by a long shot. It's not done. There will be a race in November having to do with that.
okay.
And that is it. Now we're down to our big shout outs for the week.
Yes. Oh, for me, that was the California School Board Association resolution. It's wonderful. It's really great. It's 4 pages long. It really has in there a lot about school shootings, and that's what we need to know. That you need to look at the actual.
Well, they took action. This is the whole
Yeah.
thing, right? The California, is it Latino or Hispanic? What do they call
Latino.
it? It is California Latino School Board Caucus.
Yes.
And
yes.
big shout out to all of them.
Yes.
And my shout out is to 2 great leaders in the adult education world, Kristen Persley and Ken Ryan. They have been incredible leaders for the older adults, for supporting parents, teaching parents to support their children. They've both served in over 20 years as classroom teachers and mentors to other classroom, to other teachers. They deserve all the support we can possibly give them. There recently has been an operative. They have recently both received termination notices as temporary employees. It's a very big mistake, I believe. And that's the lightest way I could describe it. It's a huge mistake to take these leaders and not give them the support that they need, and not give adult education the support it needs. And this is another issue that needs to be discussed and given the respect it deserves by the community and by the leadership of the school district.
Yeah.
And hopefully that will happen. But right now, my shout out is to Kristen Persley and Ken Ryan, adult education leaders in West Contra Costa. So with that, we thank you, and we'll see you next time.